Okay, so if you've ever heard anybody refer to a snowball day in reference to trading, uh, what they're talking about is what I'm going to recap for you right now. I'm closing day number 13 in this account with an astounding $338.20 loss, which is damn near 13% to the negative on accuracy of 16.67%. That is one winning trade out of six trades taken. And as you can see by all my metrics, this has had a huge impact on my stats. And although I've kind of already made peace with the fact that this happened, I am really, really disappointed in what the trigger for it was. So, most of the recap, I hope that I will spend talking about how to recover and what I do to recover from days like this. Because the truth is that anybody who's ever taken trading seriously in any kind of capacity has experienced days like this. And it's a really important part of trading in any kind of seriousness to be able to bounce back from days like this. And I believe I have a lot to offer in what you can do personally to get yourself back onto the right track. And I'm really hoping that I follow my own advice and am able to pull out of it, because in the past, I have not done so well with days like these. And it's not because of anything due to the money. It's more just of failing myself is such a rare occurrence in this way that when it happens, I tend to snowball the snowball day. That is, this a day like this has a tendency to trigger additional losses. And so I'm going to be super mindful of that. And it's part of the reason that I'm mentioning it now is because I know I'm going to rewatch this video right before I start trading tomorrow. And I'm hoping that this will be the trigger to get me in shape and make all the right decisions coming out of it. So coming into today, unlike yesterday, I felt great. I got excellent sleep. I woke up on time. I had my entire pre-market discipline checklist done by I think it was like 7:45. And because I was starting to feel a little bit tired at 7:45, I decided to take like a 1 hour and 15-minute nap or so, 1 hour nap, and give myself the opportunity to get a little bit more rest before I started trading. I had done all my research. I had a well-developed watch list. I had mapped out all the resistance lines on the stocks that I was watching. Done all the news research, everything. I had a really productive morning in between like 6:30 and 7:45. And so I decided to go back to bed, and I did. And I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I had a pretty horrible nightmare during that hour of sleep. It didn't affect my mood or anything, though. When I woke back up, the only problem that I had physically was that I felt really tired, as in like my eyelids were super heavy. And so I jumped in the shower for 5 minutes in order to undo that, and I did. And that made me feel good again. Now, as you can see, in a 15-minute window at the beginning of the day, in these orders right here, I took three quick losses. You can see that the P&Ls were, between $35 and $42.50 on the gross side. With commissions at that point, once I closed that last trade, these were all failed initial entries. I found myself with a negative P&L of about 120 bucks, I think. And looking back, I mean, I was super not bothered by this. I can't remember a time when I've had three losers in a row that quickly and not been bothered at all by it. I looked at all of them and I thought to myself at that point, like, do I close up for the day? Because this used to be a trigger to close up for the day. When I have three losers in a row like that, I just tell myself, okay, well, you're not playing well today, and it's not, you got to close it down. But in this case, I thought, well, this is just the other side of the coin. This is not that big of a deal. And I looked at it objectively. It took a few moments, and I thought, well, if any one of these had gone right, it will cover that entire amount that I've lost. And this to me signifies that, I'm able to capture 3-to-1 ratios pretty well. And there were quite a few stocks with potential on my list. And even though a lot of them weren't going too well, none of these losses in the first 15 minutes really affected me. I still felt positive. I still felt good. I was still looking for premium setups and feeling really good about just my whole situation. I had proven over the last couple of days that, in this market especially, but even in general, when things go right, I can easily cover the losses that I'm experiencing given my initial risk. This scaling in style that I have allows me to taper the risk on the entry so that when 3 trades in a row fail, like these 3 did, then I can bounce back easily. And I maintain that even now, looking back, that I could have very easily, found some momentum. And if I had been choosy about my setups, I could have very easily covered all of this. But I must point out at the same time that closing green or getting it all back, that's never on my mind. That's not how I think anymore. It was in the beginning, like 2 years ago. That is very much how I thought. I was very focused on having green days all the time. But in this situation, I was already comfortable with taking a loss of, like $120, or even if I had taken another loss, because, at this point in the day, I was thinking, well, do I close it up or do I keep going? And my argument was that if I take an A-quality setup on the next trade and it goes red as well, okay, I'm probably going to, shut her down at that point, but I'm still okay with it. I'm still okay if I take another $40 loss and I close the day down 175. That doesn't bother me, because when things heat up, I will be able to be consistent, and I've shown that over my practice trades. I've shown it in the simulator, and I still had a lot of confidence. That's a really important point going forward to my trade on BIMI. So even though my first entry on BIMI did come pretty quickly after I closed my FTFT trade, it wasn't a quick reaction. It wasn't like an emotional reaction to let's get back in something and get it all back or anything, like I just explained. And, early on in this trade, things had gone well. And I'm not going to show the chart because I always get sucked into long explanations when I do that. I had taken a small starter at 530, and it took a long time for it to get started. There was a little bit of bouncing happening in the low fives, and then maybe 12 minutes later I added to it as it started to break out, but then it bounced back down and took more time. And my target on this had all along been $6, and my intention initially was to add above 50 and then ride that exact amount of shares up towards $6. Now what ended up happening was there was a big squeeze above 550, and then it retraced that squeeze immediately. And what started bothering me on this trade was the lack of predictability in the level 2. I saw signs that I kind of sort of interpreted as possible manipulation even, but basically it was just really unclear to me whether or not this was going to work out. And after it popped above 550, there was some consolidation above 550. And I decided to play it safe, and I reset my stop from the 510 level or so where it initially was, and I placed it squarely, hard stop at 550. So if the price dropped below 550, that's where I would stop out. And this order right here at 10:05 and 49 seconds, that is exactly the time of the turning point in this day, because I exited the whole position in anticipation of 550 breaking. I did not wait for 550 to break because I didn't want to get slippage. Even though the slippage only would have cost me maybe $7 or $8, I just didn't want to do that. And as a result, I missed out on the move. It bounced, that 550 exit, that ended up being the bottom of the pullback. And from that 550 area, it jumped back up. The evidence of this is clearly visible on my trades window, because this exit was at 10:05:49, and then I immediately got back in. Only 33 seconds later, I got back in. And this entry, this re-entry into BIMI, this was an emotional response. This was me mad, and I'm pretty sure I even started swearing when I noticed the bounce off 550. Pretty much as soon as I made that exit at 550, I thought, nope, that was the wrong thing to do. You shouldn't have done that. You jumped too quickly, you overreacted. And then instead of just taking a step back, that's when I overreacted and compounded my mistake by getting back in at a price that didn't make any sense. I started chasing this thing at a price level where I should have been selling the position that I had built down here. And you can see I got aggressive. I let my emotions really carry me away. I added quickly, at 585. I added a half position for the break of $6. There was a little bit of a pullback and consolidation, and then as we broke 6 again, I added a third time. And that brought my average up a lot higher. I think it was at like 596 or something like that by that point, and I had a couple of hundred shares. And what pissed me off even more about this situation was the flush out that took place on BIMI. There was a lot of consolidation happening around $6, and I was waiting for the skyrocket move that I would be able to sell into. And instead of that happening, there was a weird flash where the price just dropped from in between the range of 610 and 590 without any warning or signals or anything like that. It just zipped down into the 520s, and then less than a tenth of a second later was all the way back up at 570s. I really don't understand it, but the takeaway from that situation is that it angered me even more. I had already let my emotions get the best of me after exiting at 550, and this just exacerbated the situation when that dip happened. And my stop had been way surpassed by that point. On this trade, I was deciding my stop on the fly because it was an emotional response. I had to think about my stops sort of on the fly, and they got broken right away. That dip down blew through my stop by about 25 cents, and I had to make a difficult decision at this point. And I decided, let's just take insurance and try to prevent a really big loss here. And I took half off the table at 554. And for a little while, it looked like it was going to come back up, and it didn't. And I ended up stopping out of the rest at 525. And did I learn my lesson? Of course I didn't learn my lesson. I got, my emotions got the best of me again. But in between these trades, I did actually step outside and I had a smoke and I tried to calm myself down. And I really did think I did that. I mean, looking back, I'm not 100% sure that my HEPA trade was an emotional response. I know for sure that my second trade here on BIMI was just pure anger trade. But in any case, HEPA ended up reacting a lot in the same way that BIMI did. I ended up surpassing my intended max risk by quite a bit. And we'll take a look at my trades here. I forget all my averages. So 521.6 was my average on HEPA. And, you can see that I stopped out in the 480s. And that was more than I had intended. I believe my max dollar risk that I planned on this one was in the low 40s, like $42 or something along those lines. And even on my BIMI situation, I had only intended to risk like, I think it was 65. And I ended up losing $145 or something on this trade. Let's go back to my log and take a closer look. $164 is what I lost on that second trade on BIMI. And my first, if we look back into the day, after these three losses, my P&L was like negative 130 something, and this brought it down to 100. And at that point, I could have reevaluated, and like I said, I could have taken a step back, and I didn't. Instead, I booked an additional $236 in losses. And these two trades are the problem. I'm okay with all of this. I would not really necessarily change anything that I did on these three trades. I'm perfectly okay with taking those losses. I don't like the fact that they all happened, very close together. There was a time where I had multiple positions open. These first two, I had them open at the same time. Also on one of them, I believe it was this one on BNGO, or no, it was this one on Ford. I had I had done the very rare thing of leaving a live stop order in the market because I was involved in two trades. If you had watched all my recaps so far, or at least the first one, you'll know that I forgot that I had a position open on day number one in this account, and it led to the biggest single trade loss that I've taken in this account so far. And, that really pissed me off. So in this case, I tried to adjust. I had that in my head, two trades open, got to be careful. And so I decided to use a live stop order. And that live stop order did not trigger at the price that I wanted. I had it set at 116. And I looked up all of a sudden and saw that the ask price, or the bid price rather, was down at like 104. And what I ended up doing was waiting for a little bounce where the bid came up to 112, and I just exited that trade at 112. So even though some things went wrong in here, I'm perfectly okay with them because I know that if I stick to the setups that I've been taking, I will easily be able to justify these losses by getting them back later. All of the problems today happened in these two trades. Like I said, the pivotal moment that was absolutely the turning point was this moment in this second, exactly in this second. That's where it all went wrong. So, all of this brings me to the ultimate question of how do I bounce back from this? How do I recover? How do I rectify this result and, go forward? Because you cannot change the past. This is done. I have to move forward from here, and this is my new situation. And before I get into this, I'm going to point out something that you may or may not have heard in other videos about me, and that is that I not only don't care about money, I actively hate it with a passion. I hate what it does to people, and I make it my life's work to disrespect money as much as I possibly can. Now, the advantage that this gives me is that I can easily treat play money in a simulator like this, whether it's this or poker or something else. I've always been able to really just treat play money like it's real. And the emotional effect I feel from taking a loss like this in a simulator today is no different than it would be if it were real money. I feel just as shitty. And the reason is not the money. This isn't the result I'm looking at. It's this one. Percentage to me is all that matters. This is the scorekeeper. This is what tells me if I'm doing right or wrong. Now, pretty much any major piece of adversity that I face in life, especially outside of trading, that's where the better examples are. But it's easily applicable to trading as well. When I suffer a big loss like this, or for instance, in 2018, my mom died. She lost a 13-year battle where she beat cancer, and then the cancer treatment killed her. And it was a very, very slow death. Over 13 years or so, that's how long it took her to really break down. And that was a devastating loss. And we can go back even further. I can't give details to this one, but the fact is, if you ask my family, they will say that they've heard me utter many times since that time that I should have been dead at 15 years old. And that is the truth. I survived a situation when I was 15 that I absolutely do not think I should have survived. And going forward from that point, my attitude is that everything from that point on was gravy. And that's the reason I eat the way I do. That's the reason I do a lot of things the way I do, is because I feel like I've been blessed with extra time. And you don't even have to have that situation on your side to be able to take advantage of this next point. Now, I just mentioned a couple things that may not apply to you personally. My feelings about money, those are very rare. The situations, the losses that I've suffered, they might not be relatable to you either. However, something we absolutely all have in common, if you're able to listen to this video, there is no question whatsoever that we all share a huge amount of advantages. If you're in a position to lose in the market, then you should be blessed. You should feel absolutely blessed. Zoom out of your life very far, as far back as you need to, and just think of, the fact that you were born into all kinds of luck. Me personally, I was born male. Right there, that's a huge advantage. My skin is white. That's a huge advantage. I was born in Canada into a loving family. That's an enormous advantage. As I speak right now, somewhere in the world, somebody's probably getting their whole family murdered, and I'm not experiencing that. All kinds of people throughout all of the world, throughout all of history, have experienced horrible things. Even just the fact that I'm 33 years old right now, that's better than the vast majority of all the humans who have ever existed ever. And I think it's stuff like that that you really have to look back on. Anytime you suffer a loss or something that makes you lean towards depression, if you're somebody who's going to be affected emotionally by a loss in trading, personally, I think that's way too fickle. But I do understand that there are people like that. And so in a situation like this, I would strongly recommend that you back up your view of just life in general and think about, right now, are you hungry? No? Do you have a roof over your head? Yeah. Do you have a place to sleep every night? Do you have people that love you? Do you have friends around you? Well, if the answers to those things are positive, then shut up. You don't have anything to bitch about. And that's the way I feel right here, you know. And it doesn't even have to be on such a huge scope, you know. This is me backing up very far to major advantages over lifespans and stuff like that. But even if we just focus on this trading account and just focus on the market right now, we could see a number of positive things. For instance, I'm still green in this account. My net average ROE is above 1%, which is a growth rate at which I can build this account. I had, my daily accuracy is 69%. Even though my trade accuracy is not fantastic, it is still at an easily profitable level. There are a lot of stats in here that are not bad and that I can work with going forward. And so even if I zone in just on trading, you can see that this attitude of zooming out a little bit and looking at the bigger picture will help you get through times like this, whether it's in training or it's in larger scale situations in life. Having this type of attitude and being able to reflect and look at everything objectively and from a relative perspective, I think there's no problem, honestly, that you can really feel depressed about or sad about. You can't pity yourself in any situation. If you're in a position to lose money in the market, you're doing better than well over 85% of everybody who's ever lived. And that's nothing to sneeze at. And so that's pretty much the attitude I'm going forward with. I mean, I don't have to zoom out all the way back to that life stuff. For me, it's just I'm just looking at the trading specs right now. Is that, well, yeah, it's bad. I shot myself in the foot here today, but what's the damage really? And really, it's approximately $200 to $250 of extra losses that I took today. And those losses were the result of my own decision making. It's not somebody else's fault that I lost today. It's mine and mine only. And so taking responsibility and sort of viewing the bigger picture of your situation, I think, is the number one way that you can move forward in a positive light, no matter what kind of adversity hits you. Now, this next point is maybe going to be a little above the heads of a few people. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to explain it right, but just for reference, it comes from Mike Caro. Caro is the last name, and he's a mathematician slash poker player who had a lot to do with the development of math theory in poker. And something I learned from him that helped me a lot in my poker career was the concept of you're never up or down. He has a sort of a way of looking at things where you're always even no matter what. His backing premise is that everybody is always stuck in the present. There is no past. The words I just spoke, they don't exist anymore, and these results, like I'm not down $338. I'm just even at 2280. And in managing a poker bankroll, I must say that this kind of attitude has helped me a lot recover from big losses, especially when I was younger. When I was 18, 20 years old, I really had a hard time accepting big losses. And in poker, the swings can be a lot more brutal than they are in the stock market. And things can change a lot more drastically, a lot quicker. And there are a lot of comparable ways, but it is an attitude that's very much applicable to the stock market and to day trading. And I feel that that's a great way to look at things. I'm not up or down any amount. This is just the situation that I have right now. And if I were to take a trade tomorrow morning and I'm up $120 and find myself with a new balance of $2,400, I'm not up $120. I just have a present balance of $2,400. And I think that's a great sort of, if you can get past it, if you can accept that, which let me tell you is not necessarily going to be easy, but if you can explore that idea and really come to terms with it, it'll definitely help you get past any kind of fluctuation, whether it be positive or negative. Personally, early in my poker career, I had a habit of going really bananas when I had big wins. There was one day in particular where I started with $0 and left about 18 hours later after playing poker with 10,200 and something. And that was, a gigantic win. And I was only, I think, 19 years old at the time. And then later that night, as I was calling a friend to pick me up, I got robbed. And I didn't get robbed for the 10,000. It's a long story, but anyway, I got robbed for the 200 I had in my pocket, and the people went away. And then it was later revealed that I had taken the 10,000 that was in my sock out, and I had left it on a payphone. And there's a lot of elements to this story that I won't get into, but the point is that I had in 18 hours I had converted $0 into 10,200 at a very young age, which was easily a comfortable bankroll. And then within a span of about 20 minutes, I had given it all back. So I had experienced highs and lows in a very short time frame. And looking back on that now, I think to myself that if I had had this attitude that Mike Caro taught me of always considering yourself even, that would have helped me a lot more, or it would have helped me a lot get past that loss, which threw me off. I mean, that loss threw me off for a very long time, and it's only been in recent years, maybe the last 10, that I've been aware of this theory, and I think that it's something that you can use for sure in the field of day trading. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this recap that I was already pretty much at peace with the result that I have, and I must say that in making this recap, I feel even better than I did at the beginning. Just repeating to myself the things that I've used in the past to help me and trying to pass them on to you has already made me feel a lot better. And meanwhile, there have been a couple of runners. ATIS has moved up a little bit here. There have been a couple of other moves today, and even though this day is nowhere near how spoiled we've been over the last three, I do feel pretty pumped up. Like this is still way better than what I was dealing with in the beginning. If we open up my daily results again, like we didn't have any kind of momentum like this on these days. These days were dead, and I still managed to pull profit out of them, even though it was at a slower rate. And so, it's back to the basics now. I'm going to open tomorrow with very strict rules of what it's going to take for me to open the day. If I fail even a few things on my discipline checklist, well, then I'm going to cut myself off, especially given that it's Friday. I'm not expecting too many home run setups tomorrow. And so for me now, I've been adding pretty aggressively into a couple of these moves. And even though I have left a huge amount on the table over the last 4 days, not counting today, like days 9, 10, 11, and 12, I did leave a lot on the table, and I still got away with some pretty green days, and I've made good progress in this account. And so in order to continue that progress, I think the best thing to do would be to reset to the basics, focus on the things that I just said, focus about what's positive, and just go forward with a fresh start and a fresh head, and look for all the things that I would have been looking for, let's say, on this day. On this day, we didn't have all the momentum we have now. There wasn't FOMO in the market. There wasn't, all kinds of big runners every day. There was a lot less opportunity, and I still managed to have a gross green result, not counting my account fees. But I still managed to pull some profit out of it. And so that's kind of the reset point that I'm looking to go forward. I'm definitely not looking for let's get it all back. The thing I'm going to be the most focused on is the last point I made about always being even. But even if I don't accept that, I'm still up. This is still, I'm still up 14% in this account, everything considered. And on top of that, I still do have $3,000 of simulated money behind that I can use. So it's not, there's still a lot of options left for me. And if I continue to make good decisions and avoid the stupidity that I, made myself guilty of today, then things will continue to tick up and I will continue to have good results. So that's the game plan, and the only variable left is whether or not I'm going to stick to it. So let's hope.